Hi, I'm Mark Rodman, the founder of Xtra Effort, the recruiting firm for enterprise technology companies. Every once in a while, we have a 30-minute booster session for instruction relative to go-to-market strategy. And today, we're fortunate enough to have Scott Carlisle, the VP of Business Development with SES AI. I'm reading it because I want to make sure I get it right, even though I've known Scott for almost 30 years now. And SES is a SaaS and AI platform. It's super relative to today's world because it's dedicated to innovation in battery design and productivity and performance. And you can imagine with AI and the consumption of battery, how important that is. And similarly, meet Joe Pascal, the CRO of Facility Grid, and they provide a SaaS AI platform to help construction owners and real estate owners, both commercial, to be much more innovative and efficient and compliant in both the construction and maintenance and operation of large portfolios of construction. And they're really leading edge and making some big impact there. But in the spirit of go-to-market innovation, both Scott and Joe have a lot of experience with best practices on go-to-market sales, both including AI, but not limited to AI. And the first question is AI related, and that is, how is AI helping with pipeline development? And I'm going to go on a little bit and provide some editorial there, especially if you think about pipeline development for larger accounts where there's fewer larger deals to a smaller target of strategic accounts as compared to pipeline development for smaller commercial deals where there's a higher volume and more velocity. And it's a tough balance. And I suspect you both have, or at least one of you, maybe both have thoughts on that.
Sure. Sure. I mean, I can address that, or if you'd like.
Yeah, please, Joe.
Mark, AI is helping us definitely improve the pipeline development, both across sort of these large deals and commercial kind of segments. But definitely the strategy differs between each one. The complexity, the buying behavior, deal side obviously is different. So for the larger enterprise accounts, we use AI and our sales tech stack really to support a more sophisticated account-based marketing motion. And our stack includes HubSpot, Warmly, SalesLoft, Sales Intel, LinkedIn, sales intelligence platforms, and more. And basically, the goal is to aggregate as many buying signals as possible across a smaller set of strategic accounts when we're focusing on the large ones. So like we'll try to pull information on website engagement or intent signals, and all the stakeholder activity, as well as like LinkedIn behavior or any types of news or expansion, hiring trends, or those types of things. Now, with the enterprise level, the depth of the analysis and the number of data points we can collect, obviously per account, is much greater. And so AI really helps identify patterns, right? It prioritizes the outreach, the timing. It helps us map the stakeholders. And ultimately, our goal is to improve the personalization, right? So we can have the team focus on high-touch engagements on accounts that show the highest probability to buy. And ultimately, our goal is then to improve the win rates and shorten the sales cycle. Now, when we're dealing with our smaller opportunities, and those we're trying really to leverage AI more for scale and velocity, right? So we're using the same tech stack to automate, sort of lead scoring, which outreach prioritization, our sequencing, so we can really manage a higher volume of opportunities while still retaining the message. So. But ultimately, the high touch experience that we're getting from AI is not really to replace the human interaction. So it improves the timing, the relevance, and the prep. But our reps are still leading the relationship, the discovery, and the value conversations.
Yeah.
What it's doing is that the combination of these tools are allowing us really to scale the outreach more without losing that personal touch and our high, expectations for a good quality engagement.
Excellent. Good. Any particular AI tools you mentioned a few. Any among those that you use more than others?
No, I mean, I think all of them are important to kind of create this web, and we're trying to get data points from all of those different pieces, and they all play, a unique role. But together, as a stack, and this is definitely something that, we advise you've got a number of things in place before you start to make these investments.
Right.
They all play an important role.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. If Scott, I trust you may have something to add, but one quick question is, you hire 5, let's be stereotypical, 25-year-olds or 22-year-olds out of school in their BDRs. And typically, from my old world, you'd say, hit the phones. And I know it has to be more nuanced than that. I'm so curious as to how to interject banging the phones versus the AI. And at what point does the handshake occur? And are the handshakes going back and forth between AI and that 22-year-old BDR that is, historically you bang the phones, and I think that one-dimensional approach must not be cutting it today. And would love to have both your thoughts on that as well.
Yeah, it's interesting, having run staffs of BDRs and recruiting that young graduate, the model's changed for us, and not that it should change for everybody, but in our scenario, we're very, very targeted. We're developing AI platforms for folks that develop battery materials and cells. So pretty narrow market. And what we find is really important is being able to communicate and bring value to them immediately. Otherwise, they're not really engaging.
Right.
So where we used to have staffs of BD, we have just a few. And their role has changed. In fact, we've developed AI agents that go out and help us obviously identify the targets, but also procure a lot of background information as to what's important to them. So our engagements become dramatically more meaningful to the things that they care about at the moment. So that's been very important. Another dimension of it, though, is in our AI business, we need a lot of data. Who gives it to you? Well, corporations aren't, but educational institutes are. And we know how much fun it is to sell to a university, not particularly profitable. So therefore, you have to have a different model for the universities. You need a model that says, hey, here's what you get and here's what you give. And it has to be frictionless, and it has to be one where both parties win. And we found that to be highly effective too. So we get more and more contribution to improve our AI platform. But I think it's really enabled through our outbound of AI enablement. So it's been phenomenal. And we don't have the breadth of tools that Joe has. In fact, we're kind of lean. We have Apollo. It's okay. It does the job. But we have developed a lot of our own AI tools for outreach, like automating LinkedIn connections and correspondence. That's pretty hard, it turns out, if you want to do it in volume. But yet an agent can do that pretty effectively. So we've actually built a few AI tools internally that have been super helpful in how we engage. And once we do engage, we actually leverage a lot of AI in terms of, with their permission, recording the meeting, but creating follow-up action items, important next steps, and then drafting that email so that you become a lot more efficient in how you go and interact.
That's great. Thanks, Scott. So we've talked about the pipeline generation. Now you have a pipeline. The deals are in play. How does AI play into the qualification and the advancement with or without MedPick as a consideration?
Give it to you, Joe. I got some thoughts there.
Yeah. Well, I definitely think AI is becoming extremely valuable once the deals are sort of in the pipeline. And that's because really the tools now that are available, we've got Fathom, we use other AI market intelligence platforms. And what they're able to do is really ensure that the messaging and the engagement and follow-up really remain coordinated across all the participants. If you think about these larger enterprise deals, very often they could be 5, 7 stakeholders. There's many
Right.
that we want to influence, right? So
Sure.
what the AI tools can do now is, they can meeting summaries and action items. They do sentiment analysis. We can use it for coaching, where we hear sort of different objections that are coming through, identify them, and then work to coach the team on conversations and other things. So what a lot of the AI is doing is just allowing the account executives to focus more on customers and the conversation itself, so they can understand, what's the business plan, what's the buying process, identify political dynamics, or what the decision making hierarchy is, and basically build the business case rather than spending a lot of times on the administrative tasks and note taking. So I think it's done. It's helped us significantly improve deal qualification and even forecasting accuracy, if you think about it, because the information that we can get, it's got to identify a pattern of health on these accounts. Like, do we have the right people engaged? What's the response activity? And all these, a number of other indicators. So it definitely helps us improve the deal qualification. So if there is weak discovery or there's low engagement, we're going to reduce kind of the happy ears forecasting,
Right.
where you kind of feel it's right. With AI, we can really do a lot more risk assessment on, how strong and healthy our pipeline is.
That's great. Scott, anything to add?
Yeah, I just think it's about all the things you can do as a talented rep, if you had time, are now possible, right? You want to triangulate more. Okay, well, how are you going to triangulate? Well, AI has just made that immensely more easy in terms of who's who in the zoo, and understanding, how do I reach them, what's important to them. The other thing is, a lot of time a client likes to know his competitive position in certain topic areas. Research they may or may not be willing or able to do.
Right.
You can also do that to bring more value to the client at the end of the day. So I think it's just for the ambitious creative rep who applies it, they've got a tool chest that is just far greater and gives them more capacity than they've ever had before.
Wow. So when I think of the ideal classic enterprise salesperson, you have a mix of someone that is high energy, competitive, articulate, ready to run through walls, high activity. And then you have somebody who's cerebral and thoughtful and brings value to the discussion. And ideally, you'd want to find somebody in the middle. Of course, how has AI potentially or potentially not moved that criteria on that continuum of, okay, well, now you can hire the person that's articulate and driven and high activity, but not so thoughtful, and the AI will supplement them, or not. Any thoughts there?
Well, I think you know if somebody is AI forward or not. And if they're not, then oftentimes it's just a matter of providing the skill until they get it.
Right.
And we'll put forward, some really skilled resources to say, hey, think about this, think about that. And then once you show them a few times, it really changes behavior.
If they know it's good for them. Right.
I would agree.
Yeah.
I mean, AI's definitely changed kind of the landscape of how you're an improved sourcing and screening and all those.
Right.
And the good reps are looking for any edge they can get, and very, very quickly, even if they're not, up to speed, coming into companies that are, we can get these top performers up and running, and then they can see that amplification of their activity and their ability to respond. But the hiring still comes down to identifying, those reps that have grit and they're process driven, and they know how to build trust. They're self-motivated, and they're highly competitive, and they thrive on complex selling environments, and want to get deals done. So you just can't take some of these innate things out of what's really required to be successful.
Yeah. And then last question, because we only have about 30 minutes. How does in 2026, how does AI impact how and when you may change from a product-led growth strategy to a sales-led growth strategy? And if AI may have nothing to do with that question, but you both worked for high growth, leading high growth smaller enterprise technology companies that must, to some degree, face that decision point. And I'm curious as to how you go about managing that.
I think first off, if you can do product-led growth, that's the best thing in the world. So, you're never going to break that. If that works, fantastic. The problem is it doesn't always work. And, at least is one person's perspective. And from which you need to be able to take findings and help the product team get better at product-led growth. Mm-hmm. You always have the desire to have sales-led growth. That's how we're measured at the end of the day. And we take all the tools that we have and do the best we can with them. What I think, one of the things is still kind of old school communication is make sure you capture the data, make sure you put it in a form that the product team can consume it, and keep aligned on a really regular basis. I mean, I have weekly calls with the product team with, yes, I want to know what's coming so we can educate our field, but I also want to make sure they're hearing the voice of the customer, the voice of the marketplace. And if I can structure that data in a way that's more meaningful to them, again, those recorded calls, we look across them, we scan them, we look at trends that we're seeing and bring that back to the product team. Mm-hmm. But at the base of it, it's really got to be a desire for the two teams to want to work closely together and figuring out the right communication channels and formats that are helpful. And AI can certainly enable the content, but the mechanism has to be in place.
Right. Good. What do you do when you have a salesperson that is coasting on the product-led growth and then it's time to move to the sales-led growth? How do you make those changes?
So I don't think the AI has much to do with that.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
Let's pull AI out of it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's really about, are you approaching it correctly? And, they may be in that situation because they got assigned a great territory or a starting place, but they're not building on that. And when you see that trend, I think there's a couple of things we can do, which is assign them different accounts and targets to see if they actually can drive it through and make that possible. And make them work for it if that's the case. And it's kind of a simple answer, but that's the approach I take.
Yeah, thank you. And I guess one last question is, how are you both feeling in general about 2026 for the SaaS economy?
We feel good. I mean, our business is booming and really growing. We specifically sell kind of into the construction and existing building space, and it's an aging sort of a workforce. And there's a massive amount of investment going on right now to rebuild really the infrastructure across the United States and many of the manufacturing areas. And so business is good. We feel like we're poised for continued growth, and we're looking, for new talent that can continue to come in. In fact, I was interviewing and reviewing one the other day, and I'm seeing talent actually lead now with their AI experience as a way that they are amplifying their ability to reach and surpass quota and goals. So I'm seeing it marketed as I look at new hires as well. And again, I think that's a trait of what we're going to need to see. It's not only knowing the individual spark in the relationships, but understanding really how to compete and scale and get the most out of your time, which is always what we're trying to struggle to do in sales, right?
Right. With or without AI. That's true.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
In our business, what we're seeing is this is very, very disruptive, and it is threatening to research scientists. So you have that as a backdrop. But leadership is of the opinion that if they don't do it, they will succumb to others that are willing to do it. So there's this really interesting dynamic going on between the sponsorship. Overall, we're seeing the management teams winning, so therefore we are expanding and we're seeing adoption. Obviously, there's some proof that has to come along with it. And as we recruit people to join the company, it's interesting that you have to be AI forward. It just is a requirement and it's sort of a table stakes at this point.
Right.
From our perspective, partly because of the market we're in, but also partly because we feel it's a way to be successful. And
Yeah.
as a result, and it's really interesting in the younger generation. It's pretty easy. It maybe a little more challenging, based on some demographics. Just leave it at that.
Yeah. It's interesting. We had a similar panel with CEOs, and one CEO went as far as saying that we're asking our employees to show us how they're using AI to make themselves more productive, and if they can't, a little dramatic, if they can't do that, they're out. And I'm sure there was nuance in the implementation of such a policy, but nonetheless, it echoes what you're both saying about how important that is.
It really is. It's
Yeah.
a game changer in many dimensions of the business.
Good. Well, we have 3 minutes left. We'll be efficient with our time. And there was one critical part that I did not do, which is to introduce two critical, important partners here at Xtra Effort. And Nancy Shipley was the primary person to acquire Xtra Effort, and she is introducing some AI technology in a big way and hiring a whole team of both business development and sourcers and recruiters. And Alec is helping out with process optimization and business development as well. And I didn't want to make this a commercial, but I certainly should introduce. They're present, absolutely should introduce, and it's also some exciting times ahead of us.
Yeah, thank you so much, Joe and Scott. This is great to meet you and really fascinating to hear how you're implementing AI, and we look forward to do it too. So very exciting.
Yeah, Nancy has a PhD in computer science, and when she hears how you're going to be able to use AI to make LinkedIn more productive relative to recruiting, she's going to call you. I'm sure her ears are smoking when she heard that.
Very excited about that.
Good. Well, thank you
What are
all.
your thoughts, Nancy, as you
Go
think
ahead.
about applying AI to the business? I'm curious what, some of the opportunities that you see out there.
Well, it sounds like you guys are way ahead of me, and also it almost could be the same type of implementation. I went to a conference this weekend, and they reiterated that if you don't use AI, you're going to be out. So definitely have to work towards implementing it, whether it's building out like you're doing, Scott, with tools that you have and doing it in-house, or getting other tools like Joe's using. So just scratching the surface here. Very excited though.
Great. Well, you've got a great legacy business to pick up on. I tell you, Mark had built Xtra Effort to be just my go-to source for when I needed a particular resource, and hopefully you guys will grow and build beyond that.
For sure. Mark's been amazing, helping us so much, and we're really grateful. So excited to still support you and do it in that personal touch. So we'll be there.
Onward and upward. Well, thank you, Joe and Scott. Really appreciate it.
Sure.
Great to be with you.
My pleasure.
All right,
Thank
we'll
you
talk
guys so much.
care.
It's great to
Bye-bye.
meet all of you guys, and I can't wait to talk more with y'all. It's been a great afternoon. Thank you.
Have a good day.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Take care.